Curious George built an igloo. It was a beautiful winter morning. George was up early. Next door, his friend Bill was up too. Bill was building a house out of snow. It's called an igloo, Bill said. I'm going to sleep in it tonight. George wanted to help. He also wanted to sleep in the igloo. It would be a lot of fun. George tried stacking some blocks of snow. It was not easy. They kept slipping and sliding. First, you make a circle in the snow, said Bill. The snow blocks go around the circle. This makes a sturdy base for more snow blocks to go on top. Bill showed George how to stack snow blocks on top of the base. Around and around they went until there was only a hole left at the top. The last piece is called a keystone, Bill said. It keeps all the other stone blocks in place. You have to fill in all the cracks, Bill said. This keeps the igloo nice and warm inside. They smoothed out the snow blocks. Bill and George filled all the spaces with snow. George was impressed, but Bill's igloo was a little small. George wanted to build his own igloo, a big igloo that could fit his bed and some friends and maybe a party with music. George got to work. This time he made the circle bigger. He stacked the snow blocks around and around, just as Bill had taught him. George worked on his igloo until the sun went down. It was a big igloo. It even had a window. But George was a tired monkey. He did not have time to fill in all the cracks with snow. The man with the yellow hat helped move George's warm bed into the igloo. George bundled up and went to sleep. Soon George woke up. He was very cold. The window was drafty. The cracks were letting the cold air in. George really wanted to spend a night in an igloo. What could he do? Then George had an idea. The man had told George to come inside if he got cold. So George worked quickly and built a new igloo in his living room. It was nice and warm inside the house. He crawled into his new igloo and went to sleep again. The living room was the perfect temperature for sleeping, but it was too warm for a house made of snow. George's indoor igloo began to melt. When George woke up the next morning, his igloo had melted. It had turned into a big puddle and a big mess to clean up. Lucky for George, his outdoor igloo was still standing. The big igloo was too cold for sleeping, but it was just right for a party. George and his friends spent the whole winter playing in this big igloo until it melted away in the spring. The end. What is your favorite part of the story? My favorite part of the story is when at the end, George's big igloo was just right for a party. Curious George goes to a bookstore. George was a good little monkey and always very curious. Today, George and his friend, the man with the yellow hat, were going to the grand opening of a bookstore in their neighborhood. Yay! George's favorite author was going to be signing her latest Penny the Penguin picture book. He had every penny book she'd ever written. He couldn't wait to meet her. But when they arrived at the bookstore, they found a long line that zigzagged between bookshelves. We'll purchase the book first and then wait in the line to get it signed, said his friend. "There are lots of kids who also love Penny the Penguin." The line inched forward and stopped, inched forward and stopped. George climbed on his friend's shoulders and tried to take a peek at the author, but he was small. She was hidden by the crowd. He looked around the bookstore. So many new books! What stories would they hold inside? What funny characters would he meet? "Be a good little monkey and don't wander off too far," said the man with the yellow hat, letting George down and picking up a bird-watching guide from a nearby shelf. "You wouldn't want to miss getting your book signed." George was happily flipping through the storybooks when he noticed the wonderful smell of banana bread. It made his stomach rumble. George was curious. Could there be food in a bookstore? Food and drink were never allowed in the library. George decided to find out. As soon as he turned the corner, he discovered glass shelves filled with baked goods instead of books. It was a small cafe. Next to the cabinet was a table with a sign advertising for free samples. George watched people help themselves to little squares of banana bread. He took one too. Yum! The little girl saw George and tucked on her father's sleeve. "Daddy, look! That monkey likes banana bread too." "Yes, I suppose monkeys would enjoy banana bread," he responded, still looking at his book. While George was reaching for another sample, and then another, and another, he saw the little girl and her father leave the cafe area. Tucked under the girl's arm was George's favorite dinosaur book. He decided to follow them. They led him past the display of dinosaur books and in the science area of the store. The display was as tall as the man with the yellow hat. It was hard to resist them for a little monkey who loves to climb. George climbed on the first tire. With so many books to look at, he wasn't sure where to start. He saw his favorite dinosaur book, but he also saw other books. One pictured an apatosaurus eating leaves. Another showed pterodactyls soaring above waterfalls. He climbed from tire to tire until he reached the top. From above, he noticed a stack of boxes in the corner of the store. The boxes were shaped like presents, but the bows and wrapping paper were missing. What could be inside them? George leaped down and opened the boxes. They each contained a stack of the newest Penny the Penguin picture books. George wondered, why were books in boxes? They should be in a big display like the dinosaur books. George had an idea. George got to work right away. He balanced the books one by one as if he were building with blocks. People in the line marveled at what he was doing, except the man with the yellow hat, who was engrossed in his new bird-watching guide. The tower of books grew and grew and grew, and so did the crowd's amazement. "What a wonderful display!" said the woman. "Wow, look what that monkey made!" exclaimed the little boy. "Stop!" shouted a nearby bookseller. "You shouldn't have opened the boxes." But George was having too much fun to notice. From the top of the display, George looked down and finally saw the bookseller, the manager, and the man with the yellow hat peering up at him. "That monkey opened all our boxes for the signing," complained the bookseller. The manager smiled at George. "He certainly did, and now we don't have to. I think his tower of books is a masterpiece." The manager asked George if he would like to help with the signing. George was delighted. He would finally meet his favorite author. George made sure each book was open to the right page, ready for the author's signature. He thought it was funny that her name was Penny, just like the penguin in her books. As she finished signing the last book, Penny turned to George and smiled. "Thank you so much for all your help today. It was great to have the extra hands and feet, but there's one book I still need to sign." She inscripted the book and handed it to George. Inside was a note saying, "To my new friend George, keep reading." Yay! George loved his new book. It was special and one of a kind. He had such an adventurous day at the bookstore, he couldn't wait to visit again. The end. What is your favorite part of the story? My favorite part of the story is when George was sampling the banana bread. This book is Merry Christmas, Curious George. This is George. He lived with his friend, the man with the yellow hat. He was a good little monkey and always very curious. Today, George was visiting a Christmas tree farm. "You can help me pick out the perfect tree for our home," his friend told him. "Keep close to me while we look." George promised to be good, but little monkeys sometimes forget. Christmas tree farm had more trees than George had ever seen. He found a very nice one right away, but then another caught his eye, and then one more, and then another. George was curious. How many Christmas trees could there be? George could not resist climbing the tallest tree to get a better view. He looked for the man with the yellow hat, but his friend was nowhere in sight. Two men tromped into the clearing. "That's our tree," one man told the other. The men cut down the tree and loaded it onto a truck, along with George. George held on tightly. He saw the man with the yellow hat as the truck drove away. But the truck was going too fast. George could not jump off. He was scared, but still a little curious. Soon the truck stopped in front of a hospital. George peeked out of the branches as the men carried the tree inside. The hospital was a busy place. George jumped out of the tree. There was a lot to see and do. He looked at some interesting pictures. He found a jacket and tried it on. He played on a trampoline and he even went for a ride on a speedy little car. What fun! Then George spotted something very interesting. His tree! George knew that Christmas trees were supposed to have tinsel and twinkling lights and shining ornaments. But this tree was empty. George thought, and then he had an idea. Next, George noticed a pile of gifts at the corner of the room. The gifts looked pretty, but George was curious. Could he make them look even prettier? This red bow would look much better on the green box, and the name tags might look nicer on different packages too. The nurse arrived, and what did she see? A monkey, and he's making a big mess. A group of children crowded around the nurse. They were all patients at the hospital. Even though it was almost Christmas, the children were not smiling or looking happy. "Come along," the nurse said, picking up George. "I'll better better get you out of here before you can ruin anything else. A girl with a cast stared at George's tree. Suddenly she giggled. "Look," she said, "that's my X-ray." A boy laughed. "And there's the balloon from my room." All the children started chattering and laughing as they looked at George's funny decorations. "Can't he stay for the party?" a boy asked the nurse. "We don't mind about the gifts. It'll be fun to sort them out." "Please let him stay, please," the other children chimed in. When she saw how happy the children looked, the nurse looked happier too. "I suppose he could stay," she said, "if he promises to help fix the tree." George was happy to help. The children helped too. Some of them returned George's decorations, while others handed George the real ornaments. He scampered up and down, stringing lights and hanging tinsel. Being a monkey, he was good at that sort of thing. He was good at making the children laugh. When the tree was finished, George helped open the gifts. He was having such a good time, he completely forgot that he was lost. Until the man with the yellow hat hurried into the room. "There you are, George," he cried. "I followed the truck all the way here." George was very happy to be reunited with his friend. The nurse invited them both to stay for milk and cookies. Ho, ho, ho! Did someone mention milk and cookies? A man in a red suit walked into the room, his belly jiggling. He was holding a beautiful golden star. George's eyes widened. It was Santa Claus! "Who would like to put the star on top of the tree?" Santa asked. "George!" the children cried at once. "Let George do it!" George scurried up the tree one last time. He put the golden star in place carefully. "Merry Christmas, Curious George!" The end. What is your favorite part of the story? My favorite part of the story is when George was decorating the tree. Thank you for reading with me. Merry Christmas!